You're listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. And I got to tell you something, people. Today, my guest is a Mets fan. And the weird thing is, I'm a huge Phillies fan, but I've never hated the Mets. The Braves, I hate them. The Nationals, don't worry about them because they always get the playoffs and don't do crap. But the Mets, maybe it's because as a kid, I watched Tom Seaver, or, as I got older, I watched Dwight Gooden, or maybe it's from the Seinfeld episode, the spinning episode that Keith Hernandez was on, because in that game, the Phillies were playing the Mets. But a few years ago, when the Mets were on the World Series, they were playing the Royals, I put on Facebook, and I was living in LA at the time, I put on Facebook that I wanted to see the Mets win. And my friends from Philadelphia went off on me. They called me a little bitch. They called me soft. And the best is they said I should lose my Phillies card. And I'm 55 years old. I've been a fan since I was 4 years old. And I had no idea what they were talking about. Anyway, we have a great show today. We have a Mets fan who I see his displeasure on Facebook. He's also a 7-time Grammy winner. And my guest is Steve Thompson. How you doing, Steve?
Great, Steve. All right, don't bring up the Mets. I've been a fan since '62 because I lived not too far from Shea Stadium. I actually grew up around the block from Donald Trump, so I know the Trumps very well. And it's my displeasure that our management team is so dysfunctional because I feel we have a good team. I just think they're being coached improperly. It drives me nuts to see what goes on. I met Joe Wilpon, the owner of the Mets, a couple of years ago. I was working a lot in Vegas. And I went to the Vegas 51s when they had people like Noah Syndergaard and Steven Matz, all these people in there, and Wally Backman was the manager. And I absolutely love Wally because I was at the '86 World Series game when the Mookie Wilson-Buckner play happened. And I used to hang out with a lot of the Mets players, so there's a lot of history there. But, it's interesting. Being in music, sports people want to be me, and me want to be sports people. You know what I mean?
Right.
It seems like to go back and forth. So, one of my outlets is I love sports. I'm a Mets, Jets, Islanders, Knicks fan, so been a perennial loser for a while now. but I'm not a fair weather fan. Everybody says, well, go to the Yankees. I said, why? Because they win? I just can't do that. And again, if you saw my sports memorabilia, it's probably valued over $1 million. I have every baseball card set made from 1960 to present. I have an unbelievable ball collection that can go from Joe DiMaggio to everybody, Mickey Mantle and things like that, a Michael Jordan signed ball. And I probably value my golf trophies more than I do my platinum records.
Well, it's funny, you talk about being a fan, and me, Philadelphia being a lifelong Eagles fan. When I was in L.A., I would have to go out to watch the games. I would go to a bar down the street. I lived in Burbank. And I would always get abused. I would hear crap from Cowboys fans, Redskins fans. And then I finally moved back east, and they win that year. And it was a great thing. Winning the Super Bowl, I had tears in my eyes. It was wonderful. But in a little part of me was wishing I could have been still in L.A., so I just could have given everybody the finger that yelled at me over all those years.
Well, I have to say, L.A. fans are just, they're wusses. I hate to say it, but, they don't stay for the whole game. I've been to Dodger Stadium many times. I think the Rams have a great team. I think they're really good. The Raiders, I'm a John Gruden fan, but I'm waiting to see what he actually does. But I'll tell you the truth, I'm really excited about my Jets this year. We finally have a real coach, and we have some really good players, and we actually have a decent quarterback. So I'm actually looking forward to it. I remember, I used to have the Jets players over my house when I lived in Long Island, and I'd have a catered event. They'd come over and things like that. They always invited me to the game. I said, listen, dude, I have a big screen TV. It takes me an hour and a half to drive to the game. Why do I want to go there when I can have all my friends over and we can enjoy the game?
Right. Well, you said you grew up around the corner from Shea, and now, at what interest, you're a big sports fan, but what interest, at what age did you start getting interested in music?
Oh, ever since I probably probably about 8 years old. I mean, always loved music, and when it came to high school, I was designated the person that would bring in the music for the senior lounge. When I got out of high school, I did various jobs and worked in Sam Goody's record store. Excuse me, I have a bad allergy. Sorry. I worked at Sam Goody's record store, and I was a shit guitar player growing up. I always wanted to be between a Mick Ronson and a Jeff Beck guy. I was in a band called Silver World. And, we played, glam music because this was the 70s. We were into the Bowie, Mott the Hoople, New York Dolls, T-Rex type of vibe. And did I know I was going to get into music? I have to say one thing. When I saw David Bowie play the Ziggy Stardust Show at Radio City Music Hall in probably early 70s, it blew me away. And again, I went to the original Woodstock even though I was a little baby. I saw Jimi Hendrix live. I've seen every band live. But when I saw that Bowie Ziggy Stardust Show, it absolutely blew my mind. And that actually got me into classical music because they would play music from 2001. I think it was Walter Carlos that switched on Bach or whatever. So I got into that, and I followed Bowie's career in the 70s. I went to every one of his shows. I wound up becoming a disc jockey in New York nightclubs because I had a great record collection. And how I got into actually working in the industry, I remember a friend of mine, Ron Radimo, owned a club in Long Island called Barrymore's. I would do my nights there, and at the end of the night, he would listen to the tapes I made the night, and he was like such a big fan, and we lost touch. I remember doing a record called Disco Hustle in 77, where I put the best of dance music on vinyl with Atomate Roulette from Donna Summers to whatever. And it sold 12 million copies. I got a $250 check with no credit. I'll never forget that. And Ron pitched me to Henry Stone from TK Records to do this dance music. So I think the first artist I worked with them, and I was so green in the studio, is working an artist called Zoe B. So I wound up doing dance remixes in the late 70s and early 80s, and it took on. And then, Disco Dead crap happened probably early 80s. Got out of that, went to full-time DJing again. Then I got back into doing R&B music for Mercury, like Stephanie Mills, Barcase, and all those bands. Got back into it, and then when so-called New Wave hit, I got the call to do Talk Talk It's My Life, and started doing David Bowie, Ultravox, Psychedelic Furs, Missing Persons, and I started doing all these records. Then I went back to pop music, where I started working with artists like Whitney Houston, Aretha Franklin, Earth, Wind and Fire, also did Tears for Fears Shout. So I started doing all that, and I got bored. I said, all my records hit number one. That sounds weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's one of those things, though, it's something that you're really good at it. It's a track record, so I think a lot of times if we know we're really good at something, we want to find something else.
Yeah, I've always been a person that had multi-taste. When I grew up in school, I hung out with this girl, Dottie West, who was probably a 400-pound black woman. And this was in Jamaica, Queens, okay? And she would go around to the school, and again, you have to understand the culture at that time. You didn't say boo in school. And she would take a little portable record player and bang James Brown and walk into classrooms, and the teachers wouldn't say anything. So she turned me on to James Brown, Miles Davis, this and that. So I got into that whole side of music. In the 70s, I was into like Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Stevie Wonder, Motown, Philly International. So I grew up on that side. But the other side, I was into Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Bowie. So I was all over the place because I loved all the music. I just like music that resonated to me. And I really feel that helped me in music. And when I was doing dance music, the great thing about that was there were no rules and arrangements. So I remember working on a song by Madonna called "Open Your Heart." I remember, who was it from Geffen who called me up? Or Geffen, oh God, Michael Austin, which is Mo Austin's son, wanted me to do a remix on "Open Your Heart." He said, "Steve, we know this album's probably dead. We want to give one more shot. Would you work on the song "Open Your Heart"? And at the time, I said I would love to. So I think I took that song, made it 10 minutes and 25 seconds long and not be boring. And the reason why I made it that long is I wanted to give a DJ a bathroom record, meaning you could feel free to put this record on. It wouldn't lose interest. You can go to the bathroom and do your thing and come back, and it'll be fine. And the song went number one. And so I was doing that and working with Whitney Houston. I want to dance with somebody, and I love working with Whitney. And I got a point to my career, so I need to do something different. So I remember my manager calling up Tom Zutav, asking Tom to give me some. We're a band called City Kid, which was wound up being called Tesla, and Guns N' Roses. So I jumped at the chance of working with them. Then after that, everybody said, "Okay, Steve's the rock guy." So I wound up doing, bands like Soundgarden, Anthrax, Metallica, everything down the thing. But I said, that's just not me. I like diversity. Working with Alice Cooper, Cinderella, Dawkins, the whole gamut. And I remember at the end of the 80s, I was getting bored. I was getting calls from bands like Poison and Warren, and no disrespect to them. They're great at what they do. It's just not my thing. And I called my manager up. I said, "This is all I'm getting offered. I'm out of here." And then I got a call from Steve Robowski, who was the A&R guy from A&M. He says, "Hey, I just signed this exciting band called Soundgarden." And I listened to them and it just blew me away. So I got to work on Soundgarden's first album. Then the 90s came. Alternative was big because of Nirvana, Pearl Jam, everything like that. So look at a guy like Steve Thompson. Okay, he's an 80s guy. What does he know about this? So I decided to pick an artist that was so obscure that I could make noise with. It was called Butthole Surfers.
Oh, yeah.
So I wound up doing the Butthole Surfers Electric Larry Land album. I co-wrote the song Pepper because when I heard the demos, they were missing something. So I wound up writing the song Pepper with the Butthole Surfers. It wound up becoming Alternative Song of the Year, the #1 alternative band of the year, and I just basically gave a big fuck you to music engineers. Never try to pigeonhole me, because that's not what I'm all about.
Well, I'm
all about making music today and tomorrow. I'm not about looking in the past. Because, today I'm still 16. Today I'm still growing, and I feel like I'm a new kid on the block.
Well, it's real quick. It's amazing is when you say that. It's quite obvious. Like when you go to your website, which people, it's SteveThompsonProductions.com. When you go to your website and when you click on your discography, it has to go to a whole second page because there's like 9 pages. I mean, it's longer than most introductions to a novel. And if you just go through your A's, I mean, you look. I was looking at your A's. And just Alice Cooper, Alphaville, the guys from Yes, Anderson, Wakeman, Howe, Animotion, Anthrax, Apollonia, Aretha Franklin. It's everywhere, and that's what's cool. I mean, you're hitting so many different areas, and the best part is they're all kick-ass artists.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Clive Davis was a major mentor of mine, and we worked very closely together. I think with Clive liked me. I didn't give him any bullshit. I told him exactly how I felt. I remember we had a meeting one day in his office, and everything was hidden to Whitney. I worked with Aretha on probably about 6 different songs from I Knew You Were Waiting, which won a Grammy with her and George Michael. And I mean, obviously I'm a big Aretha Franklin fan, and Norada Michael Walden wound up doing the productions on that was this amazing genius. And I remember him playing an artist, and you have to understand the whole scenario of Clive's meetings. He'd have his whole staff in there. They all have their pad and pencil ready, and he would play everything on 11. And the problem is he played cassettes. And when he would rewind something, the heads would hit over the sound, and when he rewind stuff, it was just over the top loud. So he was really excited about this artist. And, and he did the playback, and everybody's clapping, and I just was like shaking my head. So Clive immediately goes to me. He says, "Do you like her?" I said, "The only way this girl would ever have a chance of even getting close with it if she was on Grease 3, because it was pitiful. And everybody's mouths dropped because I would say like I felt. And I found out a week later that he dropped that artist.
Now, do me explain to me and my listeners the difference between mixer, remixer, and producer. Because like producer in music, I know because I know a lot of writers for TV shows. Producer is basically just a writer. An executive producer, co-producer is just a title because they don't want to call him a writer anymore. Producers in movies put the stuff together. They get the stars, they get the funds, they get that. What is a producer's exact job, if you could sum it up, in the music world?
Producer is a wide range of things. A producer could be just supervising the recording of an artist. Again, I'm an anomaly because I'm a writer, producer, arranger, and mixer. And what I do is if I work with an artist or band, I listen to the demos. I would take apart the songs, find the strengths and weaknesses. And if I felt lyrically, again, when I work with an artist, I say, what audience are you trying to attract? And if they tell me it's like 15 to 24, I'm going to write that audience. They say it's all over the board, fine. So I'll take the lyrics, I'll probably rewrite them if need be. Again, I don't like to redo something if it's working. If it's not working, I have to redo it. So when I get together with an artist, I sit down with the songs, rearrange them. If I need to rewrite them, key changes or whatever. I mean, here's a good example. When I work at Blues Driver, they had a 25-minute ballad jam called Runaround. It was a ballad. And I said to myself, you know what? I think there's a song here, but it's way too slow. So I picked up the tempo on the song, reworked the song with John Papa. I said, let's make it up-tempo, and I had to change the key. And again, I don't normally like to change keys with artists because I like them to sing in their comfort key. And the key I changed it to was not exactly a comfortable key for John. And but I felt it was the right key for him to sing it. And I remember we wound up redoing the whole song, brought the tempo and everything like that. We tracked the song with a guide vocal. And so when I went to do the real vocals with John just couldn't get it. So I wound up stopping that a day. I came back the next day and said, John, I'll make a deal with you. John loved to eat. If you get the song in one take, I'll take you and your band to Peter Luger's in Brooklyn, which is like probably the best steakhouse in the world. And if you sing this in one take, I will take you in the band. Piece of shit got it in one take. Probably cost you about $2,000 that night, but it was probably the best $2,000 I've ever spent in my life because he got it. It's I can't talk about other producers. Some producers are engineers who think they are producers, but they're just all about engineering a song. To me, as a producer, I have to oversee every aspect of the recording and writing of the song, because my goal is to take an artist or band, whatever genre they're in, find out what my competition is and better it. That's my goal. And again, thank God I'm still 16 years old at heart. I understand today's lyrics, understand what today's kids like, and I'm not about to go back to the 80s, okay? It's okay to have influences, but, that's not what I do. I'm all about making music today and tomorrow.
Now, how do you still keep in tune? I mean, what would you say? Is it just, do you have an ear on the street? Or, I mean, how do you keep in tune to what people listen to? Because for me, my fiance listens to Sirius. We listen to completely different music. Even though she loves classic rock and the new wave that I all love, she's moved on. I'm still somewhat back in the 80s, 90s, and classic. But how do you get the feel of what people want? Is it just something that is it instinct, or is it just learned?
No, I think this comes back to my DJ background. I never wanted to be the bandwagon. I never wanted to follow the bandwagon. I was always the bandwagon. And it was my job to look 6 to 8 months into the future, and that's how I work on music. I mean, I go to clubs, I see artists, I go on YouTube. I do so much research to see everything out there. A great example, I wrote 3 songs, and my ex-manager, Doug Goldstein, managed Guns N' Roses, and one was called Revolution, one was called Deleted, and I said, I'm looking for a young band to record these songs. So he just suggested this band called Bliss Union from Prague. And they were great. They're young, affable, and I wound up writing these 3 songs, which basically married EDM with rock successfully. Because, it's okay, because, you have the retro thing. You have, like, the Struts trying to replicate Queen. You have the Zeppelin bands, or whatever you want to call them. I forgot what they called.
Yeah, I can't think of them. Is
yeah,
that right? I heard him on the radio yesterday. Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah, Greta Van Zeppelin.
Yeah.
My friend Jason Flom signed them, and I think they're very talented, obviously. So now, and then Bruno Mars just did a song with Ed Sheeran that's rock. So I think, Bruno to me is probably the most talented pop artist out there. I think he's following Michael Jackson through when Michael Jackson started adding rock to his repertoire. That's a decent song like that. I noticed they had like 10 or 20 writers and this and that. And that's what I find the problem in music today. You don't need 50 million writers and producers and this and that to do it across. I mean, I have no problem with writing, whether it be Bruno Mars, whether it be the Struts, whether it be 21 Pilots. I could do everything with the artist and make the best record ever. That's what I do, because I do my homework. But it's very sad because you have a lot of insecure people that operate the music industry that said, well, I put Max Martin on there, so I'm done, I'm good. Instead of, I remember when Lady Gaga did a record probably about 4 to 6 years ago, and it was on Interscope, Jimmy Iovine. They probably spent about 25 or 30 million promoting this record. I listened to the record, and I said, you kidding me? This wouldn't have got out of demo stage of me. Why would you do that? And the problem today is with ears in the music industry. Ears today in the music industry is going on YouTube, and where there's the most hits. I mean, somebody could take a shit on a toilet on YouTube and get 50 million hits, they'll sign them. And I hate to say that, but so, the problem with the music industry, they got rid of all the creative people who actually, can make the right music and have done this. And, you're dealing with bored people. I'm saying to myself, what are you people thinking? In every successful business, the way you are successful is you have creative people in the creative departments. But the problem is the accountants, lawyers, and the suits have taken over this business who have absolutely no clue what's going on. They sell things short. They have streaming, which, they basically pimped out music, which is disgusting. And once you alleviate the, and this happens at Hollywood too, once you alleviate budgets, you're going to make crap. And you're happy with crap? I'd rather make timeless contemporary music. I mean, the stuff I make still selling tape 30, 40 years ago.
Well, it's funny.
There's a reason for that.
It's funny you say that about making crap, because I've talked that with some actor friends. A lot of the actors back in the day, they went to school for acting. They have their chops. They did summer stock. They did that. And then they come to Hollywood, and you get in a movie, and you have to nail your takes. Well, now, you don't need to nail your takes. You can just be someone really good looking who can suck as an actor, but the way cutting and editing now is, they don't have to deliver, they don't have to remember the whole script, and it seems like you're saying that's what's happening to music, too.
Well, I just read a movie called Souls that's going to be huge, and I know the whole Hollywood thing, and here's the problem with Hollywood. Most directors and producers feel they need to do 5,000 takes on a scene when probably one, 2, or 3 is the right take, but they don't have a clue what is good and bad. And I'm not going back to the Ed Wood days when take 1, 2 is the shit. But, that's the problem. To me, you have to have a vision. You have to know what you're doing. I like I'm in the studio. I know what a good vocal take is. I know what a good band take is. I don't need, to me, in the studio, my big thing is doing great pre-production. Once you go in the studio, you're going to nail them, take 1, 2, or 3. You go past that, you're going to homogenize the song. You're going to take the whole spirit out of the song, and that's just not right. So doing your right prep work, to me, is crucial. And, today's modern producers and engineers have a problem. They feel they have to look at a Pro Tools screen If a note is off on a vocal, they have to auto-tune it. And again, I love auto-tune because I think auto-tune today can add a flavor to a vocalist, but it should not be the lead vocal, the performance of vocal, except in the sake of like people like Kanye, who should never even get near a microphone. But you know, that's the whole thing. It's having a vision, it's knowing what you're doing, and that's what bothers me about a lot of music today. And again, there's a lot of great music out there. There's a lot of great bands out there that are not getting heard. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of great things out there. But a lot of people making music today are absolutely clueless. I hate to say it.
Well, I think that's across the board. I mean, you know, I have the background back in the late '80s, early '90s. I was a stand-up comic. I worked the road, and you know, I've noticed the trend now, like you said about the girl taking a crap and she's singing, sitting on a toilet, and it gets, you know, so many hits. Well, a lot of things that happen now is that these comedy clubs bring on someone who they saw on YouTube who doesn't really do comedy, but they have a big following and they think they're going to sell the club out. But they get on stage and after 7 minutes they suck, and then it waters down the whole stand-up comedy business.
Well, the problem with comedy today is PC. You look at Seinfeld. You know, I grew up on Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Rodney Dangerfield, Eddie Murphy. I mean, I can Robin Williams. You can't do that comedy today because our society is fucked. Excuse the expression, but they're so PC. I said, you know what? Treat comedy as escapism and don't take it personally, okay? If people talk racist jokes, I mean, you can look at Richard Pryor. I mean, he was the king, Red Fox, and all these others. I mean, you can even look at Dean Martin's Celebrity Roast and look at them. And you cringe today and say, oh my God, he said that about a black person? Now, understand, I grew up in New York. Race was never an issue in my family because of the way I was brought up. My parents weren't racist, and they said, Steve, we don't care who you bring home. As long as they agree, don't care what color, ethnic background, religious, gender, whatever. If they're good people, they're good people. And so that's how I was brought up. So I've never personally understood racism because I think it's a joke. That anybody who's a racist should not be on this planet. And you can't judge a person on their ethnicity or skin color. That's just wrong. That makes you a shallow piece of shit person. But, you know, with that said, that we're in a day and age with social media dictating how people should feel. And whether you're pro-Trump or against Trump, again, I'm not saying I'm pro or against and everything like that, but Trump is my president. I have to deal with it. Obama was my president. I dealt with it. Bush was my president. I dealt with it. I mean, Nixon was my president. He was a piece of shit, but I won't even go there. But, you know, we have to deal with it, and we have to make the situation great. I mean, I look at Congress, and I'm saying to myself, you idiots are there to work for the American people. Get off your party politics stand and do your job. If you can't do the job, get the hell out of there. And again, if you hate somebody, work with somebody, because guess what? You have to deal with it. Until somebody's impeached, you have to deal with this. What does it take that you have to stand on a pedal and say, oh, he's a piece of shit, this and that? Work with the person, okay? We need to work for the world. Don't get me started on this stuff. It just drives me crazy.
It drives me crazy too, because I mean I know a lot of people from both sides. But I got to ask you about the PC thing. Now you said about the PC. Do you think that's going over to the music world too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it just. I mean, you have to understand. You know, you look at Hollywood. Again, they're as left of center as possible. No disrespect. Again, I'm an independent. Always been an independent. You know, my philosophy is common sense. I don't look at the left or right, what's right. I look at what's right is right. And people should need to do that. You know, get off media. Get off the internet, because they're going to they basically have, you know, from CNN to Fox News, they have their agenda. You can't believe what they're saying. You know, formulate opinion outside of that and see what that person's doing before you make a decision. That's me. I do my homework. But I guess I'm an anomaly because I side with no party.
Well, I'm pretty much the same way. I mean, I look at it, I look right down the middle. And there's certain things I like and certain things I don't. And that's just the way you have to be, because, you know, my girlfriend is, my fiance, not my girlfriend. My fiance is very liberal. Her boss is a good friend of mine. He's very conservative. but I'm right in the middle. But they get along. That's the one thing that bothers me now is people hate each other. And I'm like, just because someone's political view is this, it doesn't mean they're an awful person.
Hey, I got liberal aspects and I have conservative aspects. I don't look at it as liberal or conservative. Again, I evaluate what everybody's going to. That's all I'm saying. You know, what I see on social media makes me want to vomit because they will listen to what people are feeding them instead of evaluating what people are feeding them and making the right decision. And I just like, you know, Joanne and I, we've been together since 82. You know, she was an actress and model. We pray every day. And we do this every day when I'm home. And we want the best for the world. And the one thing I do like about Trump, he doesn't want to start a war. And I love that. Because I think war is the most stupidest thing we could ever do as a world. We have better things to fight than that. I mean, Trump has a potty mouth. I will agree. He's probably a womanizer. I have to agree. I knew him very well when he owned the Plaza Hotel. We used to go to Clive Davis Grammy parties at Trump's Plaza. I mean, I never saw the side of him. Obviously, he has the biggest ego in the world. Personally, I don't give a shit. As long as somebody gets stuff done, okay? And he's bucking the system, which I have no problem with because I think Congress is a waste of time. They play party politics, and they're not doing their job. And we're paying these assholes in Congress a lot of money. They get the best health benefits in the world. God knows how much money they're getting under the table from special interest groups. You know, and it bothers me. I said, you know what? You don't like somebody? Great. You know what? Work with that person. Make things better. To say if this guy's a piece of shit, I can't work with him, that's not an excuse. If I did that in my job, I wouldn't have a job.
Now you'd mentioned ego. Is there as a producer, how do you deal with ego when you go into the studio?
I don't. I've worked with a lot of artists, and Mick Jagger on down. Mick came in with an ego, and I settled him down. I work with a lot of famous people, and you know, the thing is that the beauty is when I'm in the studio, I'm the boss. And my job is to get the best out of artists and make them overachieve. And people tend to think my ego, but my ego is being confident in what I do. And I'm going to take you to the best path to get where you need to go. You know, like I said, I want to blow away you know, if you're a band that sounds like they're the new Beyonce, I'm going to make them better than that. That's my job. That's how I achieve. I am not into being mediocre. I'm not into following a trend. I'm into setting a trend. That's what I do. You know, I have never had a problem. I mean, I remember working with John Lennon after he died and had to work with Yoko. And it wasn't easy, but she probably gave me the biggest lesson in life is having to deal on that level. And, you know, I came away with flying colors. But, you know, it's, you know, music today is very exciting because what I like about it is it can hit on all genres, and I love that. And, you know, lyrically and songwriting, it's obviously different than when the Beatles wrote She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah, Yeah. I mean, that was probably one of the biggest songs in the world, but if you wrote a song like that today, people would laugh at you.
Right.
But you have to take it in context. You know, my thing which drives me is, again, I've said this before, that it's important to know when I work on ours, what audience we're trying to attract. Once we determine that age group, I'm going to write to that age group. At the same time, let it relate to even older people or younger people. It's fine. That's very easy for me to do. How many times I've taken apart a song where I felt they had a good idea but didn't really express it lyrically right, and we wind up rewriting it together. And again, it's not something I love to do, but it's something I need to do because of my job.
Now, in your job, you also do mixing. What exactly is a mixer? How would you describe that?
Well, a mixer basically is you get a song from an artist, and it's like mixing a salad. It's making the sound great, adding dynamics in, getting the gist of a song, and just making it sound amazing. With most bands, they could have, with Pro Tools, they could be like 200 tracks of one song. So basically what I like to do is I like to put each instrument in their own airspace so they're not conflicting, like bass is not conflicting with guitar, keyboards are not conflicting with guitar, this and that. Making it sound big, huge, and dynamic. There's a big difference being a producer or an arranger or writer or mixer. So I basically, when I work with artists that just send me stuff to mix, they'll send me what they did, and at the end of the day, I want to make sure what they send me sounds like a demo after I'm done with it.
Now, with the mixing, like with, let's say, Guns N' Roses, were they in the studio when you were doing the mixing, or how does that work? Does a band have a say on what happens?
Axel Slash and Izzy were at the studio in New York when we did. I was originally supposed to produce this, but the problem being is I wanted to produce it, and we were involved with doing Tesla's first album and a bunch of other projects. We didn't have time to do it in the time frame they wanted to do it. So I told the company, I said, listen, I really love this band. I wish you could wait, but if you can't wait, when the album's produced, we'll mix it for you. So that's what happened. So Tom Sutet, who was the A&R guy, flew in Axel, Izzy, and Slash to our studio in New York. And we wound up mixing it, which, by the way, was done all manually, no computer, no Pro Tools, it was just tape and console.
Now, the Grammys. I want to talk about the Grammys. You've won 7. What was your first Grammy?
Oh, God, that's a good question. I can name you the Grammys I did. Cutting Crew, Metallica 1 for 1. I can't believe Guns N' Roses' Appetite didn't win anything. That blew me away. I won 1 for Aretha Franklin, George Michael, Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, Korn, Follow the Leader. What am I missing? Paul Simon. I worked on the Graceland album. There's a bunch that I felt should have won. Like, I felt Public Enemy and Anthrax should have won a Grammy. Guns N' Roses should have won a Grammy. Metallica should have won Metal Album of the Year, but Jethro Tull won. I mean, you know the story on that. I don't have to reiterate that, which was a joke. But we won a Grammy for the best video. Ziggy Marley won Best Reggae Album of the Year. Blues Traveler, Run Around won Best Rock Song of the Year. I think I got everything, didn't I?
Yeah, I'm on your website, yeah. Now, with the Grammys, though, I mean, was there a charge for the first one, and does it lose a little bit after a while because you've won so many? It's not like, when you do your first one, I'm sure it was an amazing feeling, but after a while, does it get a little, I don't want to say monotonous, but does it get a little, old?
Oh, not at all. I mean, when you're recognized by your peers actually doing great work, it never gets old. It's like when a baseball player wins an MVP, you think they want to win more than one, or it never gets old. I think the beauty about what I do is my first love is when I work on something that people around the world love. I mean, when I can hear something I worked on go on the radio or go to a show and see the band perform it through 70,000 people. I remember, with Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses, I go to a football game. They're playing that on kickoff. I mean, you don't think I get a rush on that? That is so cool. It never gets old. And again, do I live for Grammys? No. I live for making great music and trying to get as many artists I can to see their vision and to be able to succeed. That is my... I know it sounds stupid and cliche, but nothing gets me off more when I see an artist I work with hit the world stage. I mean, I just love that.
Now, you mentioned earlier, we're DJ when you're younger. The worlds of DJs have changed a lot. What have you seen a change in it, and what do you think? Why do you think that happened?
Well, again, I started DJing in the early 70s. I got to work in amazing clubs. I did guest spots at the Paradise Garage, Studio 54, which was a joke. I worked in the best clubs in Long Island. I worked on the best radio stations in New York, from BLS, KISS, and KTU. I used to do special shows. And I remember going to the Ultra Music Festival probably about 5 or 6 years ago when I seen DJs like Skrillex, Carl Cox, Deadmau, and all these performing in front of 60,000 people, and I got goosebumps. You know why? When you can go to a show like that and see the energy of so many people getting off on that, I got goosebumps. You know, I remember seeing Pink Floyd in the 70s use laser shows, blew me away, or Prince blew me away. When I went to these Ultra Festivals, Electric Carnival Festivals, I mean, they got it down. I mean, it's just a great feeling. And the thing that changed, obviously, when I was a DJ, I would work at 14 turntables with speed controls. Now DJs will do their program on a USB stick. They use sequences like Tractor or whatever. So it's almost kind of self-mix. And a lot of music today, if the song is 132 BPMs, it's going to stay that way. Back in the day, a song could start at 116 and go to 126. You had to manipulate your speed control while mixing two songs together. Where today, it's just a lot easier. And you know, genres to me, I mean, obviously, today's electronic dance music is basically house music, a little modern, which house music started in the early 80s in Chicago and New York. We can go into that. So it's a lot different, but and DJ's responsibility is to mess with buttons on the mixer, which does nothing, and put their hands in the air. When I had to do it, I had to work at 4 turntables and just keep going.
Right. Well, now we talked about mixing. Now, what is when you're a remixer? Because I said, you know, if you look at your resume, I mean, it is so. You even have a Kajagoogoo in there. I mean, which, you know, a lot of people don't even know who Kajagoogoo is anymore. But we all knew Too Shy to Shy back when it came out. But what does a remixer do? Do you come in?
Well, I'll give you a couple of references. I remember when I did Talk Talk It's My Life. Basically, with that song, I got the album version, and I wanted to extend it to make it more exciting. And after a while, with remixing, I wound up bringing musicians in to enhance what was already there production-wise, to make it more interesting. So when you take I remember when I worked with Talk Talk, I did It's My Life. It became #1 around the world. And I remember the band came up to me and said, Steve, with all due respect, we didn't like this mix. I go, why? Because it wasn't experimental enough. I said, but it went #1 everywhere. I said, we can get that. So I remember doing the second song, Such a Shame, brought musicians in and just totally re-enhanced the whole production and took it to a new level, and they loved that. But at the same time, it was important to get an unknown band like Talk Talk out there. You know, with Aretha Franklin, George Michael, I brought musicians in to really basically beef up the original production and make it interesting where it could be more than a 3-minute song. And that's what basically a remix is. You know, for dance-wise. If it's a remix for an album, like when I did Psychedelic Furs, you know, Heartbreak Beat and everything, I did bring some musicians in, but otherwise I would just make it sonically sound better than the original mixes and maybe retweak the arrangement as well.
Now, I got to ask you, on your Facebook page, and I watched it, you had a trailer for a TV show that was supposed to happen with Tracy Guns, I believe. Whatever happened about that, and how did that come about?
This guy, Johnny B, was an entrepreneur from Toronto, had a lot of money, and wanted to work with me because he liked music. So he wound up building a studio for me in Toronto, which is amazing on a lake. So we decided to work together. It was 3 artists I did, which was Tracy Guns and Marty Casey, which wound up becoming Sugar Bush, the band. And then I worked with that artist Snow, and I worked with Pat Travers. So this dysfunctional as Sugar Bush Tracy Guns band, it was kind of like interesting that we set up a trailer and video to promote the album in a reality TV show, which never really hit off. But there was a lot of drama. I remember at times we had storms up there that blew out my speakers, so I'm mixing without a speaker, and it was tough to do.
Now, what do you look for a band in now? Is there any bands you're working with? I know the one band from Prague, but is there any bands that you're starting to work with that you think are going to make it? And is there any bands that you've worked with that you thought would have made it, but they didn't?
I'm always looking for new artists, because the whole thing that what I can do, most people can't do, is have a vision and get them where they need to go. I just think there's too many people who do it for paycheck and are absolutely clueless how to take that artist to the next level. That's what I do. Every artist I work with, I treat it like it's the last project I'm ever going to do. And hell, I'm going to make a name for them. That's my goal. Like I said, I'd love to work with the Struts. I'd love to work with 21 Pilots. I would love to work with Taylor Swift, Keith Urban. I could do all genres. The whole thing is that when I work on artists, I make sure they make their best record ever, and I've proven that my whole life. And that's my goal. I don't take things for granted, and I guarantee you, when somebody works with me, they're going to be very proud of what they've done, and they're going to say, "God, I can't believe I did that." That's my goal.
Now, do you take it personally if a song doesn't do as well or gets panned by the critics? Do you take that personally because you're the guy
I can give two shits about critics. Critics don't buy records. There was a magazine called NME. I call it No Musical Experience. I don't care about critics. My bottom line is I want to make music that touch people. That's all I care about. I could care less about critics. I want to make sure that when I make something that the masses, and again, when I make something, I make it for the world. I don't make it just for one country. I have experience where I want to make it for the world. I remember when I worked on Duran Duran, If You Do a Kill, we did that in Paris. And when I heard that song, I'm a big James Bond freak. To be associated with the James Bond picture blew me away. And, that's my goal. I think you have to be a visionary. You have to understand what the climate is today, and you have to understand how can you make your artist stand out from everybody else. I will say this till I drop. That's my goal. I don't take things for granted. I don't rest on laurels, and thank God I still have the hunger today that I did, years ago.
Well, no, in your career, because it's been very long and you've won a lot and it's been very successful, have you ever gone into the studio or worked with someone that you were somewhat in awe of or intimidated by?
Well, I was in awe of working with the Stones and Jagger, but I wasn't intimidated. Thank God I had a set of balls. I was in awe of working with John Lennon, even though he died a year or two before that. But, to work with certain artists, so with Aretha Franklin, with Earth, Wind, and Fire, I mean, these are artists I grew up, just idolizing. But, when I'm in the studio, it's like when somebody goes on stage. A lot of artists will say that, and then when I work with Journey, a lot of artists have stage fright until they get on the stage and perform. And then they're good. And that's the way I am. I don't look at it that way, because I feel I can add to what they do. If I can't add to what they do, I won't do it. Simple as that. I'm not into that. If I can make them better, I'll work with them. If I can't, pass next.
Now, do you have any bands lined up right now?
We're looking at about 4 or 5. I'm always open. If people want to search me out, they go to my website. Send me on my website, SteveThompsonProductions.com. There's a little filler in there. And again, I don't work for free, so you better have a budget. Don't respond. But I look at everything. And like I said, I love everything from EDM, dance music, pop, rock, country, hip-hop. I've done it all. And I love working on all different genres, and I know I could do better than anybody else.
Now, as a music lover, because I'm also a fellow music lover, what is your take, because you're in the business, what is your take on the fact that when we were younger, an album was a special thing. You know, you went out, you bought it, you looked at the artwork. When there was notes, when there was lyrics inside, you were so happy. And if 2 songs sucked, you were so sad. As a person in the business, what does it do to you when it doesn't seem like there's a concentration on albums anymore?
Well, it's the way the music industry has geared people to believe in again. I don't look behind. If that's where it's got to be today, fine. I mean, you know, would I prefer to see album artwork? And I know that a lot of online sites are starting to do that, and who worked on this and that. That's great, but I refuse to say, you know, the way I brought up is better than what is today. It's irrelevant. You know, it is what it is. You know, my concentration is the music I work on. Let it stand out and let it live on the music I'm working on. The credits, the album artwork is irrelevant today.
We got to wrap up soon. I have another question for you, though. Your 3 favorite pieces of sport memorabilia that you have?
Oh, God, I got so many. I got a Muhammad Ali signed picture from when he was at the Golden Gloves. I have a Michael Jordan signed basketball. I have a 1969 World Series Met Ball signed. I have a Tiger Woods, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus signed master flag. I mean, so many. I have a Michael Jackson signed off-the-wall album cover. I mean, I have like about 100 baseballs that have everyone on there. It's really hard to pick them out. I have a John Lennon signed Mind Games single. I have a, who's the guy who did Bugs Bunny? What's his name?
Mel Blanc. Mel Blanc signed picture. I have a couple of Bowie signed pictures. I remember when I was hanging out with Mick Rock, who did all the Bowie artwork, gave me a collage of very special pictures, and he signed them, and I sent one to, I was working in the studio. Bowie came in, it was during the Pinups Day, and he saw this picture. He goes, I don't remember that. Can I have it? I said, no, you can't have it. Well, ask Nick, sign the damn thing. So David signed it for me. I have so much. I mean, I'm still a kid. If you saw all the memorabilia and stuff I have, I mean, I have a lot of toys. I have a signed Detective Comics by the guy who did Detective Comics. I have the guy who did Spider-Man. It was funny. I had a choice to Return the Jedi soundtrack of Flashdance. I chose Return the Jedi, even though it was a piece of shit song, but I got the album artwork where my name was on it, so it was cool. I knew it immediately. Now, what do you do with where are your Grammys?
They're all over the place. I have them in my house. Some are in the bathroom.
And how many gold records do you have that are in the house?
Countless. I have no clue. A lot of them are packed up as well. You know, I sold probably about 350 million units and counting. And that, you know, and we have to count streaming and downloads and everything like that. I don't really look at that. You know, it's, to me, what I've done the best is in the past, and I don't look at that. I'm all about now and the future. That's all I look at, because I love making music. And any band artists out there that have a desire to be serious and make it down in the music industry, feel free to hit me up.
I want to thank you for taking time today, Steve. People, remember, it's SteveThompsonProductions.com. Check them out. Go on there. You'll be amazed when you click on discography. I can't even say it right. Discography. I hate when I can't say a word, but if you click on that, you're going to be like, holy crap, because it's 9 pages. So get your reading glasses on. So please go check Steve out. Check my website out, people. It's CooperTalk.net. I have over 730 episodes. You can also email me at CooperTalk.net. On Twitter, it's at CooperTalk. And Instagram is CooperTalk1. So remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, and take your vitamins. And I'll talk to you guys next time.